Why do you think that people care more if it's the Koch brothers than, say, Rupert Murdoch that does buy it? Media monopolies and these types of conglomerates are nothing new, and so why do you think that the Koch brothers in particular are something that supposedly, according to this video, right, that the LA Times journalists really fear?
Part of the fear behind it is that the Koch brothers as newspaper publishers really are this unknown quantity. Rupert Murdoch is known to be kind of a conservative guy, but he's got a record of running the Wall Street Journal, and different people disagree over whether that's been for the better or for the good. But no one knows what an LA Times under the Koch brothers would be. No one knows if you would immediately replace the entire editorial board with Matt Welch and the like, and no one knows what he would do.
I'm old enough to have worked at a series of newspapers, and I can tell you that local owners are the worst owners, because I remember the publisher of my first employer hovering behind me as I was about to editing a very critical story about a local real estate developer, and I looked back up at him, and he kind of tightened his collar and said, Dan, I got to live in this town, which was his way of saying that story wasn't going to appear no matter, what I wanted. So I don't, I'm not a big fan of local ownership of newspapers.
Look, if Eli Broad bought this paper, and it's kind of scandalous, actually, that more people at the LA Times would rather work for Eli Broad, who has zero history in newspapering and a lot of active interests in Los Angeles, both in business and philanthropy. They'd rather work for him than for Rupert Murdoch, who, for everything that Rupert Murdoch is also a newspaper guy. I find that pretty interesting. But newsrooms have been shopping for the idealized business model for basically the last 10 or 15 years, ever since the party has been over, right? It's like, okay, let's just, let's get a bunch of cash by making these companies public. Well, that works great when they were darlings of the stock market, but that's over with. So now let's have private ownership. Let's delist from the stock exchange. Well, hello, Sam Zell. That didn't work out. I was in Santa Barbara. That's where I went to school. And for years, the New York Times owned the Santa Barbara News Press. And everyone said, this distant corporate ownership, they don't understand local needs. So we need a local civic-minded person. Well, that person was Wendy McCaw. She is the single most hated publisher out there in newspaperdom. So there is no, unfortunately, glorious newspaper ownership model. That era is over. And so these newsrooms are going to have to come to terms with that fact, and it's ugly.
If you want to talk about the fear that people have about the Koch brothers, I think you can look no further than the San Diego UT, which was bought by this guy named Papa Doug Manchester, and turned the paper into a very much a conservative sort of rah-rah business type paper. So I think that would be the fear that the same thing would happen to the LA Times.
Well, I guess
is that transparent in the editorial side? If you're a resident of San Diego, is it impossible to avoid that, or if you just don't read the editorial page, are you okay?
Oh, no, it's all over the Union Tribune. It's not just editorial.